Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the effects of procedural content generation on creativity in playful city-building environments in VR. My name is Georg Volkmar, and I present this paper on behalf of my co-authors Dmitry Alexandrovsky, Asmus Eilks, Dirk Queck, Marc Herrlich, and Rainer Malaka. In city-building games, players can create, shape, and design terrains and cityscapes in an emergent way of playing, allowing them to express themselves creatively. These games are open in nature and are mostly open-ended, meaning that they do not define an end goal as strictly as other games that are more focused on progression. They come with a variety of mechanics and usually feature an editing mode, where the terrain of a map can be shaped, and a building mode where roads, buildings, plants, and other scene decorations can be placed. In recent years, many city-building games have incorporated some procedural method to generate content. Here, PCG is mostly used to generate initial map layouts or to rearrange map elements. Games like Civilization, Islanders, or Dorfromantik all make use of some form of PCG. However, there is little to no research whether PCG has an impact on players' creativity as they perceive it in-game. It may be that PCG could support creativity by facilitating human-computer co-creativity, or it may be a hindrance for creative expression by taking away control and freedom from the player. This brings us to our two main research questions that guided our work for this paper. First, does procedurally generated and user-generated content yield a different sense of creativity? And second, does the sense of creativity differ for different types of content created manually or with PCG? What we mean here by different types of content is whether the terrain is generated or the objects on top of the terrain, like buildings and roads, but this will become more clear in our study design. We implemented a playful VR city-building application that provides basic mechanics that are found in most city-building games. Players can raise, lower, smooth, and flatten the terrain, they can draw a road network on top of the terrain, and they can place a variety of building blocks that can also be adjusted. For instance, they can add balconies or additional floors to the building blocks. Prototype has four modes: User, where nothing is pre-generated; Terra, where only the terrain is generated; City, where only the cityscape is generated; and Full, where a cityscape and a terrain are procedurally generated. We used VR because many city-building games like City Skylines have started going into this direction, and moreover, research shows that immersive VR environments facilitate creativity, imagination, and flow. The application is set in a virtual living room with a sandbox in the center of the room. Players can move around by teleporting or by simply walking around in the environment. A menu is attached to their non-dominant hand, which offers functionality to shape the terrain and place building structures. In the center of the view, a text panel is displayed, showing the current task for the player and offering instructions for the controls. For the conditions in which PCG is included, so Terra, City, and Full, additional menus are displayed on the left and right side. Here, players can constrain the result of the PCG algorithm by adjusting certain sliders for variables like number of houses or the steepness of canyons. We evaluated this prototype by conducting a within-subjects VR study that was hosted on Prolific, a participant recruitment service for remote studies. We had a total of 55 participants after cleaning up the data. The procedure is illustrated on this flowchart at the bottom. First, participants were redirected from Prolific to the site where the study was hosted. Here, they gave consent, entered demographic information, and downloaded the application. Inside the VR environment, they completed a tutorial and received instructions on how to conduct the study. In counterbalanced order, each participant performed one of 4 random tasks in each of the 4 conditions and completed 2 questionnaires at the end: the User Engagement Scale Focused Attention and the Creativity Support Index, or CSI. The results were as follows. Here you can see the overall CSI values for each condition separately. We calculated repeated measures ANOVAs and found no significant differences between the conditions for any of the CSI subscales or for the overall CSI score. Similarly, the UESFA showed no significant differences either. We ran Bayesian repeated measures ANOVAs for both the CSI and the UESFA and found that for the CSI, the data is about 18 times more likely under the null hypothesis. Accordingly, the UESFA data is about 31 times more likely under the null hypothesis. So what can we learn from the data? As a reminder, our first research question was concerned with the differences in perceived creativity dependent on procedurally or user-generated content. And our second research question looked at how creativity may be impacted by different kinds of content. First of all, we found that in all 4 conditions, the prototype received moderate scores for creativity support and focused attention. We therefore conclude that the prototype functioned as a creativity support tool with a sufficient UX that did not inhibit creative content creation. Furthermore, we found no significant differences between any of the conditions. These findings indicate that PCG can be integrated into playful city-building systems without compromising the player's creativity, regardless of the content that is generated. However, there are a number of limitations to consider. First of all, the study was conducted remotely in VR, giving us no control over the study environment. Another point of concern comes from the rather short time of about 3.5 minutes that players spent in each condition, which may be too short to actually stimulate creativity. Also, the gender distribution of our sample was heavily dominated by participants that identified as male. So, what are the takeaways from our study? For the specific context of playful city-building environments, PCG has no noticeable effect on self-reported creativity and focused attention. Furthermore, reports on creativity and focused attention were similar regardless of the type of content that was generated, be it the terrain or the city structures. Therefore, we conclude that PCG can be in of the game players wish to control manually without PCG. Finally, we would like to look into differences in personality and player traits and how they may affect the interplay of perceived creativity and PCG. In our paper, you will find much more information about the prototype implementation, much more user data, and a lengthy discussion of the various limitations of our work. Thank you for your attention.